When we think of Queen Victoria, we picture a stern, grieving widow in black, an immovable symbol of the British Empire. But beneath that heavy crown and the strict Victorian morals was a woman capable of holding a grudge so deep and so bitter, it would terrify her entire court. Victoria didn't just dislike people, she despised them. She was petty, she was vindictive, and if you crossed her, you were marked for life. Today, we are uncovering the three men Queen Victoria hated more than anyone else on earth. A mastermind who tried to break her, a prime minister she couldn't escape, and worst of all, her own flesh and blood. To understand Victoria's rage, we have to go back to the beginning. Long before she was the most powerful woman in the world, Victoria was a prisoner. Her childhood wasn't spent in lavish ballrooms or running freely through palace gardens. It was controlled by a man named Sir John Conroy. Conroy was her mother's ambitious, deeply manipulative advisor. He realised early on that Victoria's uncles were dying without heirs, and that this little girl would one day be queen. So he created something called the Kensington system. It was a psychological cage. Victoria was completely isolated from other children. She wasn't allowed to read certain books. She couldn't even walk down a staircase without holding an adult's hand. And she was forced to sleep in her mother's bedroom until the very day she became queen. Conroy's goal was simple: break the young princess's spirit, make her weak, make her dependent, so that when she took the throne, he and the others would be the ones pulling the strings. He bullied her relentlessly. When Victoria fell deathly ill with typhoid at age 16, Conroy stood over her bed. While she was weak and delirious, he tried to force her to sign a legal document making him her personal secretary. She refused. She survived. And she never forgave him. The morning Victoria turned 18 and became queen, her very first royal command was to banish Sir John Conroy from her presence forever. She banned him from her court. She banned him from her coronation. The prisoner had become the warden, and Conroy's absolute destruction was Victoria's very first taste of power. But Conroy was just a bully. Later in life, Victoria met a man who infuriated her on a completely different level, her Prime Minister, William Ewart Gladstone. Gladstone served as her Prime Minister 4 separate times, and Victoria loathed every single second of it. She famously complained, "He speaks to me as if I were a public meeting." Gladstone was deeply serious. He was a moral reformer, and he was entirely lacking in charm. Victoria loved flattery. She loved the gossip and the lavish compliments of his political rival, Benjamin Disraeli. But Gladstone, he treated her like a co-worker. He constantly tried to convince her to stop mourning Prince Albert and return to public life. Victoria took this as a massive, unforgivable personal attack. She called him a half-crazy and, really in many ways, ridiculous old man. She actively plotted against him behind closed doors. She wrote secret, scathing letters to other politicians, openly complaining about his policies and trying to undermine his government. When Gladstone finally retired, at the age of 84, Victoria refused to thank him for his decades of service. It was a deliberate, stinging insult that broke every rule of royal etiquette. She made sure he knew exactly how much she despised him, right up until the day he died. But the deepest, most toxic hatred Victoria ever harboured wasn't for a politician or an advisor. It was reserved for someone sharing her own blood, her eldest son, the future King of England, Albert Edward, known to the family as Bertie. Bertie was everything Victoria disliked. He wasn't an intellectual. He was a playboy. He was a gambler. He loved lavish parties, rich food, and endless scandals with actresses. But Victoria's absolute disgust for her son wasn't just about his lifestyle. It was born from the darkest trauma of her entire life. In 1861, a 20-year-old Bertie was stationed at a military camp in Ireland, and his fellow officers smuggled a famous actress, Nellie Clifton, into his tent. The scandal leaked back to the palace. His father, Prince Albert, who was already feeling incredibly sick, travelled through the freezing, pouring rain to Cambridge to confront his wayward son. They went for a long walk in the cold. 2 weeks later, Prince Albert was dead from typhoid fever. Victoria was completely destroyed. Her world ended the day Albert died, and she placed the blame for his death entirely on Bertie. She wrote in her private diary, "I never can or shall look at him without a shudder." For the rest of her long life, Victoria treated the future king with freezing contempt. She refused to let him see important state papers. She barred him from doing any meaningful political work for the country. She treated a 50-year-old man like a disgraced child. She essentially locked the heir to the throne out of his own kingdom, because every single time she looked at his face, she didn't see her son. She saw the reason. Her beloved husband was in the ground. Queen Victoria defined an entire era of human history, but the crown didn't strip away her humanity. It amplified it. Her grudges were royal. Her hatred was unrelenting. And if you found yourself on her bad side, history itself would remember your punishment.